Hello everyone, it's Andrew from Gem TCG here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about this concept of I know the title is very strong, but taking advantage of TCG player sellers that do this one thing, and almost to bring attention to it so that it slows down because it really hurts a lot of other sellers on both TCG player and eBay because it sets a precedent for what buyers expect, and hopefully with more people doing this method or just bringing more attention to it, they will stop doing this so that everyone can sell in peace. And it's not even the concept that TCG players race to the bottom and sell things for a penny so that they can make a sale, but more so that TCG player sellers, and I know some eBay sellers do this too, but mainly on TCG player, they will list a card as lightly played. Even though it's near mint, they just do it because they don't want to deal with issues from the buyer saying, oh, this card is actually lightly played. I bought a near mint copy. I want a refund or return. And unlike on a short term and direct relation, it makes sense. Let me be more generous with how I'm grading these cards so that people's expectations will be met and they will be happy with the condition they receive. I won't have to deal with any headache of people buying a near mint card and then there's like the most minor scuff on it, or even if it's still near mint and they'll complain saying this is not the condition I want, I'm going to return it. So on that level, that direct relation, it makes sense. You might take a little bit smaller of a profit, but you're going to be providing a better experience because this customers will be more satisfied and there will be less defect rates or return rates, and like that I understand it. But the long term and trickle down effects of what this causes is that a lot of buyers get used to this so that when they're buying a card labeled as near mint, they're expecting like a PSA 10 grade condition. Or when they buy something as light played, they're expecting almost a near mint condition because they're so used to these TCG player sellers labeling near mint cards as lightly played. And I've experienced this. I showed you guys the method that I used to do. It was a few months. The video is actually pretty old now, but it was how I was buying Wizards of the Coast hollow rares from TCG Player because they would list them as moderately played, lightly played, and it would be like 50% off the market price. So I would buy them and then I'd receive them and it's in near mint condition. And even I was aware of this method and concept, and I utilized it to make a profit and source inventory in a way that was easy to replicate. And I would do it, and I'd spend $10,000 at a time buying a bunch of inventory. And I would say probably 90% of the cards that I bought that were labeled as moderately played were actually near mint. And obviously, it's very case by case, and my definition of near mint might be your definition of light played. It varies, but for the more common understanding of it, I was buying the moderately played cards, and they were, in my opinion, I actually thought they were near mint, at worst lightly played, but definitely not moderately played. And after doing it, because I've been doing this for I haven't done it recently because there's just been so many issues with TCG Player as a buyer, but I've been doing it for like over 2 years when I first learned about this and just capitalized on it. And even with me being aware that this was a concept, it had an effect on me over time to where when I was buying a moderately played card and it showed up as actually moderately played, I would almost be upset about it. And I would be shocked that someone would send something in that condition because it's almost like a grading inflation, if that makes sense. Because when I'm expecting moderately played card to actually be light played because they're just being generous, and then I actually receive a moderately played card, it throws you off. But even though that's what you paid for and that's what you should be getting. So by doing this, you're having a bigger effect on the whole industry, the whole market, because people are getting so used to this concept and these grades being described inaccurately. In the intention is pure, they're trying to be nicer and just eat a little bit of a loss to get more satisfied customers, but you're having a negative effect on the whole market because you are setting a precedent for what conditions should be. And I'm only saying this, I know I thought this all the time, but like in the TCG Automate Discord, one of the bigger TCG sellers was saying it's actually bad to do this. And I was like, oh, maybe it's not just me that thinks this. It's actually a common thing from TCG player sellers that are aware of this and they don't like it because it's hurting their business, and they're getting more returns because they're labeling a light played card as light played, but people are so used to light played cards being near mint that they're like, when they get it, they want to return it. And I've always been confused by this too, because when I was first starting selling, and I was trying to get as much advice as possible from people selling on TCGplayer, a lot of the time the common tip was like, if you have a near mint card, list it as light played. Sure, you'll get a little bit less profit, but you're going to have that lower percent return rate, and you're going to get better feedback and whatever, all the good stuff. And I was like, why would anyone do that? Why, if that's like if I'm selling a PSA 10 card, I'm going to list that as a PSA 9 so that people are happy with what they're buying. Like, sure, that's more. There's less of a blurred line there. It's like a direct 10 is a 10 is a 10, a 9 is a 9. But if you think about it that way, it doesn't make sense to mislabel something on purpose so that you don't get a return, or you potentially don't get a return. And I think the fact that this is so commonly talked about and widespread in the TCGplayer seller community, it has a negative effect on the market as a whole, I would say, because it makes a lot of people more strict when it comes to conditioning, which then makes them expect more for less. Because if I'm expecting a near mint card at lightly played condition and lightly played prices, then you only know what they're going to expect for a near mint card. They're going to expect it to be like, if this doesn't get a PSA 10, it's a scam, or whatever they want to say. And then I guess obviously don't take advantage of sellers. That's not what I meant by the title, but if you wanted to utilize this strategy and capitalize from it, all you have to do is look for any cards you want to buy, and go on TCGplayer, look up lightly played condition, and buy it. Especially if it's a near ultra modern card like Scarlet Violet or Sword and Shield. If someone's labeling that as lightly played, 9 out of 10 times it's actually near mint, and they're just doing that method to lower their return rate or get a better feedback rating. So if you want to buy cards for your collection, or you want to buy cards to flip, this is a perfect strategy to do, because one, you're getting them at a discount, and two, there's going to be less competition on those cards because people want near mint cards. They don't want lightly played cards most times. So this gives you the opportunity to quickly scoop up as many as you want at a discount, and then you can buy it in bigger volume too if you're a person trying to resell. Because if you think about it, and you've been buying and selling collections for a long time, when have you ever gotten a Scarlet Violet card or a Sword and Shield card that was actually lightly played? Most, like, I've never gotten one unless it was from someone that's like their whole collection was damaged and they just had some random Sword and Shield cards in there that were damaged. But the odds of you getting a ultra modern card with whitening on the edges or the corners is extremely rare. The only common one that I could think of is like if you're buying reverse hollows, because those do scratch a lot, especially the Sword and Shield era reverse hollows and anything prior. But Scarlet Violet, for sure, you will never see an actually lightly played card unless it's from someone that just doesn't know what they're doing and they are not taking good care of their cards. But if you're buying from someone with 100 plus sales on TCGplayer, they most likely know what they're doing, and they're doing this intentionally because they learned that advice from other YouTubers and other TCGplayer sellers to just purposely grade them lower than what it should be. And this works also very well with Wizards of the Coast cards, because if you look at what a market price of a lightly played vintage card compared to the near mint card, it's like 30%, 40% below. And if you could buy those at 30 to 40% below market and then sell it on eBay, you will be making a huge profit. And obviously, it takes long to make those sales because vintage cards don't sell as quickly as modern cards unless you have a good market for them or a good buyer base. But I did it for the past 2 years and it worked extremely well. I've been getting tons of sales doing it, and I never had or not never, because obviously you can't satisfy everyone, but I've probably had, out of the 100,000 sales I've probably had 10 of them being returned because they said it was not in the right condition. And those numbers speak for themselves. I don't even know what number in a percentage basis that would be, but if I'm buying these cards and I'm getting them 30 to 40% below market and I'm listing them as near mint, Even though on TCG Player I bought them as lightly played, and then I'm making that profit, it's just night and day. Easy to repeat, easy to replicate, and make a good profit from. It's not like you're fighting for 5 to 10% profit. These are the 30+% profit margins. So definitely try that out. And if you are a TCG Player seller, please don't do this. Don't sell a card as lightly played just because you're scared of the customer and you want to be overcompensating on the condition. You're sure you're having a good short term direct effect, but what you're setting as a precedent is just very bad, I think, in my opinion. And if that's the case, if that's what you want to provide, sell on eBay. Show them the pictures of the cards. Let them decide on the condition for themselves and price accordingly. But don't sell without providing a picture and overcompensating on the condition because you're worried that they're gonna not be happy with it. Plus, if you want to have a more premium storefront and tailored experience to the buyer, eBay is the way to go, and you shouldn't be selling on TCG Player at all. Actually, you should still sell on there if you have like the meta cards and the stuff that sells well. But if you want to have that type of customer experience and that type of storefront, then eBay is where you would succeed more. So those are just my opinions and some others. I've talked with other people too that have also thought this. So let me know what you guys think. Comment that down below, and I'll see you all in the next video.